What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Make Stuff Better. Today, it is New Car Tuesday, and I have something special. The not new Axial Yeti Jr. Score trophy truck. That's the one. I've been wanting this truck since I learned about it. What's disappointing is that it's currently discontinued. I don't know if it'll be recontinued later on. I think it came out about 6 or 7 years ago, which would be 2016, 2015, somewhere around then. And Axial's already discontinued it. I'm going to open this up, show you what it comes with, and get into why I decided I wanted one of these, even though it's discontinued. In the box, you get the truck, obviously, your radio, which is funny looking. It's so chunky. The grip is huge. It's weird. Most radios, you have to reach forward with your thumb to reach the steering wheel if you want a one-hand drive. This radio, you have to reach out this way, and it's a lot. So funny. It's interesting. You get the battery charger, a nickel metal hydride, 1300 milliamp hour, 7.2 volts, so it's basically a 2S battery. It comes with it. You have your instruction manual, and you also get a bag of spare parts. Like, what are the parts you see people break a lot? Shock caps. This has extra shock caps in it. It has your wheel wrench, some spacers, and some shock ends, like for the opposite end, not the cap. Another steering horn, it looks like. Servo horn. Nice. And then little fake reservoirs also that go on your shocks. So that's cool. And spring spacers to preload your springs. I have the battery on charging now. And what's interesting about these USB chargers is they only put out like half an amp to charge your batteries, which is why nobody loves the non-smart nickel metal hydride chargers. What's funny is Traxxas has just released their USB-C line of trucks, and I do that because nothing is different about the truck. They just give you a USB-C charger for the nickel metal hydride battery. So it probably charges 2 or 3 or 4 times faster. You know, instead of waiting 6 hours for a nickel metal hydride battery to charge, you're waiting an hour, which is incredible. Don't get me wrong. So we're going to do a little walkthrough on the radio. It does come with 4 AA batteries, which go right into the handle. And I don't know if it's just mine or if they're all like this. The latch on this isn't very secure. You just tap it and it comes open. So it's almost like the plastic latch just wasn't done right, or it got bent or something before it even got assembled. You do have an on-off switch right there, and you've got steering trim and throttle trim. Yes, that is throttle trim. So if your neutral isn't quite right, you let go of the radio and the car is creeping either forward or backward, you can adjust your throttle trim, which is really cool, actually. It's not a lot of cars have throttle trim adjustment. Throttle trim adjustment. It's quite a tongue twister. Now, for the truck, this is the reason you buy an RC. It's not because of the stuff that comes in the package, like the radio and whatever, because you can always do better on that and get different ones. But the truck is it. So it's got a really cool Score Desert livery on the body. The tan camo kind of looks dirty. You can see that happening there. It's basically the exact same shape as the 10th scale Score truck, Yeti Score, which is also discontinued. I don't know why Axial got out of that. But the main reason I bought this is because of solid rear axle. You can see that. It is what makes a trophy truck a trophy truck. You have independent front suspension and a solid rear axle with trailing arms in the rear instead of like a 4-link suspension setup. It does have a 3-link kind of in the rear, being that your upper links are tied together. And the reason they did that, I would assume, is so you don't need a sway bar. Because when you go to flex this, that upper link will only let it flex so far, whereas if you had a 4-link in the rear with 2 upper links, it would definitely flex a lot more, which would be good for crawling over rocks and stuff, but this truck is really designed to go fast. I'm not super stoked on the fitment of the bumper to the body. It seems like they interfere with each other more than complement each other. And if you look at it, it kind of seems like the bumper is a little crooked. The body is the one that's straight. So I might try and tweak that a little bit. I do actually plan on upgrading this quite a bit. You can get a lot of aluminum parts for this, especially in the bell crank, and from driving it, you definitely need that. It is a little bit squishy on the steering, and I think you can get front suspension arms, like your hub carriers, caster block, upper links, all that stuff you should be able to get aluminum for even still. It's amazing how parts last longer than the cars do. I guess that's a good thing though, because you buy a car, they discontinue the car, but you can still buy parts for it because you're going to have it for much longer than they'll sell it for. It does have a 380 brushed 40 turn motor, and I don't know what the servo is. It just looks like a regular micro servo, something you'd find in a Traxxas TRX4 to shift it. You know, not a primary steering servo for a 10 scale, but for an 18 scale, it's more than enough. This does have a plastic rear drive shaft, metal dog bones up front with I'm going to say a CV style joint at the hub, not an actual CV joint, because those really aren't a thing on RC cars. It is a U joint, and the way that it functions, it looks like a CV joint. Basically all plastic construction, except for your springs and your hardware, the usual suspects. Something that's really cool about this truck though is your wheel hexes actually are adapted up to a 12 millimeter hex. So underneath that 12 millimeter, you have a 7 millimeter hex, which is actually the same size that we use on our 24th and 18 scale crawlers. So if you wanted to put a smaller wheel on it, you could totally do that. You know, a little 1-inch rim, or you know, you could get some really big wheels that would go on a 10 scale vehicle because you already have those adapters. Now, similar to how the bumper fits with the body, your battery tray retainer, battery door, I don't know what you call that, battery tray door, something like that. It doesn't fit super well. It's almost like the battery door is too long for the tray itself, and you do have to squeeze it to get it in and out. But it's not like it would be less secure because of that. It just makes it a little less convenient to use. Kind of like this truck was designed to be less expensive. I think I spent $99 on it and $30 to have it shipped, so it was a $130 truck, which is actually pretty cheap for something this size. It's all bearings in your shafts, your hubs. I didn't dig into the transmission, but I assume that also has bearings in it. The front suspension does seem a little stiff, kind of like the shocks need oil or they need to be cleaned or something, especially on one side. So I'm going to take that apart and find out if it's the balls that the suspension pivots around or if it's actually the shock keeping it from moving smoothly. The rear suspension, on the other hand, is actually quite smooth and very well damped. I love that. Well, I think that's all there is to know about this that is unique to itself. It does have upper links on the front suspension instead of an A-arm on the top, and so your stabilization, a lot of it comes from that lower arm instead of the upper arm. And like I said, I think I might put aluminum on there in the future just to really stiffen up the front end. Well, let's get it out and see how she rips. So I just did a speed run, and the reason I don't show you the GPS is because I just taped my phone to the truck and I sent it down the street. I wasn't too worried about it. It's not very fast. It did 12 miles an hour. Now on a LiPo, I don't have the right connector on it for any of my LiPo batteries, so I need to get that changed. And I will do a speed run on a LiPo with this truck, and then you can see what it'll do. I do have a 1/16 scale slash. I'll show you that in a little bit. I'll compare the two, this and that, so that you can see, if you have seen a slash up close, you know what you're looking at. So the reason this thing weaves around is because I turn it and then it keeps turning. and then you turn the other direction and it doesn't center very well. So I'm thinking the servo just is not a good one. Kind of goes with the fit and finish of some of the components on the inside, where it's just they didn't spend a lot of time on it. I love the configuration of it. The quality seems like it's a little lacking, which I can take care of with upgrades and whatnot. Some of my own modifications. It's really hard to drive one-handed. It does have open diffs in the front and the rear. So I'm not sure if I'm going to ever lock them up. I might put some really stiff fluid in the rear one, just so I can get a little more of that action going on. But I'm more excited for what the potential of this truck is than I am for what it is right now, actually. You almost don't even see it in the background right there. It's so well camouflaged. It is so cold outside. That is about all the running footage I'm going to get today with this truck. Look forward for some real cinematic stuff coming with this, though, in the future. Can't wait for that. Here it is with my 1/16 scale slash. So 1/18 scale, 1/16 scale. They are basically the same size. I mean, look at the wheelbase. I could probably swap bodies on these if I put new holes in them, and it would look totally normal because the trucks are the same size. It's fascinating to me how some companies will call something one scale, something else another scale. I'm going to do a video on that in the future about scale and why it is what it is and how companies judge it and why they might judge it a certain way. So look for that coming up in the future. But yeah, if you have a 16 scale slash, this is basically the same thing with a solid rear axle, which I think is dope. These two trucks are going to be fun driving together, you know, having a little 1/16 scale race course and send them together. That's going to be a lot of fun. You may notice that the wheels on the Axial, this one, are thinner, narrower than on the Slash. I find that interesting. They also seem like they're a tiny, tiny bit taller. I don't know if you can see under the body there. Now the Slash wheels are worn down a lot, but I think the Axial wheels would still be just a smidge taller, even if the Slash wheels weren't worn down. Big difference about these two cars, other than the rear suspension, is this has a 550 motor in it, 12 turn. This has a 380 motor, 40 turn. So I might see if I can get a bigger motor in this one eventually. Maybe upgrade the ESC and everything too. Then I can ditch the transmitter, because that is comical. It's just comical. I love it. Not really. So what do I love about this truck? The solid rear axle. Hands down. That is the reason I bought it. The body isn't ugly. It is very traditional trophy truck looking, especially for the era, you know, mid 20-teens when this came out, maybe like 2010. That's about what trophy trucks looked like. Now they're all basically look like a Ford Raptor. I love that it's four-wheel drive. I like that I can get aluminum upgrade parts for it, especially in the steering and front suspension. That is going to make a huge difference in this. I probably will upgrade the steering servo. I know earlier I said this is probably good enough, and I'm not buying it anymore. I can't even sell myself on that one. Some of the things I don't really like about this truck, basically fit and finish, you know, the quality of the battery tray, the front bumper, the steering servo, just how the front suspension isn't very smooth, and the springs are really stiff. Like, there's not a lot of plushness. You saw it driving around, you probably didn't see the wheels move at all. That's something I plan to rectify in the future. New shocks and springs, and just make the thing sit like a Traxxas UDR or something. I also plan to put a roll cage on this and maybe mount some spares in the rear, really make it look trophy truck-esque, and some lights. Definitely want to put some lights on it. Maybe upgrade the wheels too. See what we can find for some fatter wheels, although these are very traditional looking trophy truck wheels. Well guys, thanks for watching. This has been New Truck Tuesday. New Car Tuesday, New Truck Tuesday. We'll figure it out. You can call RC trucks cars. You can't really call RC cars trucks. So maybe we'll just stick with New Car Tuesday because who knows? It might be a car in the future. Thanks for watching.